Hey there, and welcome to the Thinkfitness Life Podcast. We're fueled by the incredible clients who inspire us every day, allowing us to elevate their health and fitness journeys. On this show, you'll gain valuable insights from top professionals, hear inspiring transformation stories, and discover the knowledge and motivation to create your own best life. Let's dive in. As someone who has continuously used therapy as a way to heal and elevate my personal performance, I know wholeheartedly that you cannot always read the label when you're in the jar. And that's why it's so helpful to have a professional in your corner to talk to. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide our listeners with the opportunity to work with a licensed therapist from the comfort of your own home. Receive 10% off your first month when you sign up by going to betterhelp.com/TFL. That's betterhelp.com/T as in think, F as in fitness, L as in life. And remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who can help.
Welcome back to the Think Fitness Life Podcast. We have a returning guest on the show. If you listened a few episodes ago, we talked about the C60, the antioxidants, the properties of how to live a healthy life, and diving into the mechanisms of how things work at a cellular level, at a level that really drives optimal health and being. We've got to welcome back Dr. Joe, and this time we're coming on. We're going to talk about top 5 diseases of the age, as you talked about last time, inflammation and stress, and diving into some toxicology that could be and potentially living inside your own home. So Dr. Joe, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Eric. I really appreciate the chance to come back on and go round 2 with your listeners.
Well, after last time, you and I could have sat down and talked for probably 2-3 hours straight and dive into science. Of course, we got to get you back on and get this thing rolling again.
Sure, no problem. I mean, it's trying to remember exactly where we left off, but I know you mentioned the C60, the carbon 60, and that's just, it's the world's greatest antioxidant. And inflammation and oxidative stress is really an underlying mechanism of many things that are debilitating to humans, that if you can get a regimen to battle oxidative stress and inflammation, especially chronic inflammation, then you're going to be better off as you continue forward in your aging process that everybody loves to undergo.
That's the one thing that people maybe aren't aware of or don't understand is the inflammation and the chronic stress of that. Because a lot of people just think, oh, it's diseases. How do I get it? How do I maybe catch it? But it's no, you're developing it depending on your lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely.
And people don't really kind of understand that until they sit down and really listen to someone like you talk about it. And we're looking at it from the cellular level of where things can start. And for the listeners, if they haven't gone and listened back to the other one, C60 it changed me. I've been on it, and even taking it for a week or 2, you just feel good. And you're like, hey, my system is running efficiently. And that's something where I'm at the point now where I got to re-up. I'm on a big training month. I'm like, okay, I got to get some more, but definitely go out and check that out, or check that episode out, because they're powerful cells that help the system.
Oh, absolutely. And one of my best friends was out from Colorado here in West Michigan, where I live, just recently. And I was telling him a story. I'm a big dude. I'm 300 plus, and I was an athlete my whole life, and in the last probably 10 years, 15 years, I've become a little bit more sedentary. I ran a company, put on some weight that I can't seem to get rid of. It's cortisol related. But I really got on the C60 and religiously took it. I put it on my desk in the middle. It's the first thing I see when I get in my office, and I take my 5 capsules every morning. And 2-3 weeks into it, I'm out walking the dog. Just the dog and myself. My wife isn't along this time, and the dog is not stopping to sniff as much as she normally does. We're walking along at a pretty good clip, and I'm walking the dog, walking along, feeling good. It's like there's no aches and pains in my ankles and my hips and my knees from just being a big guy. And it's just all of that stuff is gone. And here I am walking kind of rapidly with the dog and to myself for the first time in probably 20 years, Eric. You gotta understand the magnitude of this thought. To myself, I was like, maybe I could run. I'm a 57-year-old fat guy thinking that maybe I got a chance at even running around the block. That's how I feel when I'm on C60.
And that should open up a lot of people's eyes. And it's one thing that people have asked me since the last episode, or just in general, what are my like top supplements?
Mm-hmm.
And of course I have like creatine's a big one for me, but the second one is what I really look forward to taking is the C60
right.
every single day. And people are always shocked. They're like, well, what is it? And well, I'm like, well, it's this carbon formula designed to help inflammation. They're thinking, oh, well, what about vitamin D, all that stuff? I'm not saying that stuff's bad, but I've come to really taking a liking just to taking the C60. I'm like, okay,
yep.
I feel good. Still taking other stuff, but like that's my second go-to now.
Right. If you give your body the building blocks to repair, the opportunity to repair, sleep, and you fight inflammation, you're going to give yourself the best chance to improve your health. Really. Because inflammation, I mean, everybody's going to age, and everybody ages at different rates. And there's different genetics that come into all of these different conditions. And every human is genetically different. Okay. So the top disease of the aged is heart disease. And that's how your blood vessels harden. They get the atherosclerosis on the inside, which narrows it, which drives up blood pressure to drive blood through. And the atherosclerosis, the leading theory is it's driven by your high cholesterol numbers. And then that cholesterol builds up, it doesn't clear from your system, and it becomes ingrained in your blood vessels. But the thing about it is, if you've ever cut into old plumbing in a barn, in a house, whatever, and you see that slime on the inside of the pipes, that's biofilm. That's bacteria that takes all of the organic material and creates both hard and soft biofilm on the inside of that pipe. Now think about this. Your blood vessel is somewhat of a pipe, and you can get that atherosclerosis, you can get a hard biofilm, you can get a soft biofilm, and it could possibly be driven by bacterial levels. Because everybody knows the human body lives in a symbiotic relationship with good bacteria, and they keep bad bacteria at bay. One of my crazy theories is atherosclerosis is just the bacteria that's not supposed to be in a larger population, maybe a larger population of a bad bacteria that's grabbing that organic material, laying it down on the inside of your pipe and creating a biofilm. Makes perfect sense, because if you can get rid of the toxic exposure, everything improves. That means with heart disease, maybe you can get rid of some of that atherosclerosis. There's some people that live their whole life and never get any of it. And there's some people that have significant occlusion, that means blockage of their vessels, at a very young age. What determines that? And it comes down to genetics that everybody points at, but it's various levels of oxidative stress and inflammation, and that toxic insult that you're forever sending your cells to have to battle on a daily basis. And that inflammation, that chronic inflammation, is what changes those bacterial populations. And when the bacterial populations are such that it favors grabbing that organic material and laying it down on the inside of those blood vessels, that's where you see a spike in heart disease.
I like that theory because I've first of all never thought about it that way. I've always thought how we taught in school, cholesterol lays it down because of whatever damages that are in. It's ever it's just the process keeps going. But especially nowadays where they're starting to talking about, well, if you have certain high cholesterol, but HDL's up versus LDL's down, like it's not a bad thing. And some research even shows if you have low cholesterol, that's actually worse for cardiovascular disease
and repair of your nervous system.
Yeah. And then when you start to intertwine, when you talk about bacteria, the first thing my brain went to is gut health. And if gut health is impacted by what we eat and toxins, where do you think that's going to come from? It's going to go through the gut lining and it's going to lay down in the arteries, in the veins. And of course, you're going to start having problems because that bacteria is not supposed to be there in the quantities that it is.
Yeah. And gut health, I mean, it's leaky gut doesn't get enough press.
No.
Because if you think about it, throughout your intestines, and there's miles of those in every one of us, the smallest layers of those intestines can be a single cell thick. And you're eating some mechanically sharp food that doesn't get chewed up enough. You're poking holes in that gut lining all the time. And then what's inside seeps through and gets outside.
Mm-hmm.
You get leaky gut and all of the characteristics that go along with it. And that organic material that isn't supposed to be there feeds the bacteria, which is everywhere.
Yeah. And especially if you have like certain bad gut bacteria that's overgrowth, where do you think that's going if it gets through the gut? Like it's going to wreak havoc if your gut isn't happy. That inflammation is just going to start going throughout the system.
Absolutely it does. It goes everywhere. It goes everywhere rampantly and doesn't stop and just gets out of control. Yeah. And the heart disease, the atherosclerosis, it's all about vessel damage. And what damages the vessels? It's chronic inflammation. That's the first one. Let's talk about number 2, diabetes.
Oh, big one.
And it's all about increased inflammation, increased blood vessel damage, increased insulin resistance. You got your type 1 diabetes, which is where your body has to deal with so much sugar that it burns out your beta cells in your pancreas. And they just stop functioning. And that could be for beta cell dysfunction, or that could be from too much production, or that could be from an insulin resistance issue, or some combination of the three, And it's just, it all comes down to your body having to battle that chronic inflammation type of a situation. And some people say that diabetes is really your body just protecting your cells from too much sugar. And we all know that sugar is extremely addictive.
Yeah.
Just as addictive as methamphetamine, heroin, or nicotine.
It's crazy, that thing, because there's been some pushback on that. They're trying to some people are trying to claim that, sugar doesn't light up the brain like those drugs you mentioned. And it's like, well, what are you trying to prove here? Are you trying to say like sugar's not bad and diminish it? But we all know it's the same neurotransmitters. It's going to light up the brain the same way, depending on the dose. It's like, let's not try to avoid what it actually is doing.
And I would ask one question. That study that showed sugar doesn't light up the brain, which sugar company paid for that study?
Exactly. You always got to be careful when they come out with, this new study shows this. Okay, who's funding it? Because it goes against what research has shown before. It's like, okay, let's look into it.
Hey, a new trend. Yes. Who's buying this? I don't know. It's just one of those things that makes you say,
Mm-hmm.
And it's all inflammation. And let's go to cancer. I might have shared my wild theory on cancer on the next one. I think most of today's cancer is due to toxic exposure. Right?
You mentioned it, but we didn't dive into it. But now this is the one where we kind of really understand and listen to theory, because it's just fascinating when you see certain areas of the country and the world. We'll take more of this country where you have pollution and stuff with higher rates. But dive into your theory on this and really help people.
Of cancers originate from epithelial cells. An epithelial cell is the fancy science word for the cell at the edge. Okay? The epithelial cell is the one that is at the edge of the tissue that faces a lumen. You have epithelial cells in skin. You have epithelial cells in lung, in colon, in bladder, in prostate, in breast. And a lot of these epithelial cells line the spaces in our body which are exposed to where environmental toxins would occur. Stuff we breathe, stuff we eat, stuff we drink, stuff we live in conjunction with. And it's those epithelial cells which result in most of the cancers that are being battled in today's day and age. Even reactive oxygen species and inflammation can result in a cell turning cancerous. And what's very popular in today's day and age is what's called turbo cancers. Heard of that one?
No.
Turbo cancers is an effect of the vaccine that everybody on the face of the earth was viciously to take recently.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And that turbo cancer, because of the effect of the spike protein that was the result of that vaccine, it was billions and billions and billions of copies of how the body would produce that spike protein. It goes in and around the different various cells, and it turns on and off cellular machinery through, let's say it was the ACE inhibitor, ACE2 receptor or something there, which nearly every cell has. And then you're turning on or off oncogenes, which is the fancy science word for the control of cell growth. If you turn one on that says allows that cell to grow uncontrollably, or you turn one off, which is controlling something from growing uncontrollably, then what you have is both cases you have a cell type which is growing without any impedance on that. And what do you normally call that? You call it a tumor.
Right. Was that something that was designed in the vaccine to get like the cells to replicate against the disease? Or was that just sort of like a byproduct that it did downstream?
That's a very good question. And instead of answering that incorrectly, I would offer up any of your listeners who want an article. It's written out of Massachusetts Institute of Technology by Stephanie Nye and another co-author. The author of the article was called something about, is the vaccine worse than the disease? Because they go through and they predict everything that they think would happen because of that vaccine when it got into people on a wide scale basis. And lo and behold, everything happened.
Yeah.
That article would tell you exactly what they thought would happen along those lines. And it's probably some of both. But I don't know off the top of my head and don't want to taint that answer by speculating. But it's the turbo cancer is, you see younger people having cancers they don't typically have by medical history, I guess. And you see these cancers developing extremely rapidly. It goes from stage 1 to stage 4 and fatal, with the timeline of something that would have normally taken years is now taken months. And it's basically racking up vaccine deaths, but nobody's calling it that.
Nor will they. But that's just like the mechanisms, and this is always the important stuff that people will never understand. But it's important to understand of how some of these drugs work. I mean, yeah, you get what the drugs do, but the drug at the cellular level, some of these drugs turn things on and off. And there are, in fairness, if you talk to someone in the biomedical field or the lab, they'll tell you, hey, we are upregulating something, which means it could upregulate something else. But it's like, that it's tough to hear when
is what that's known as. Yeah,
you start getting like turbo cancers. People are gonna be like, "Wait a second,
and
how did we not know this?"
Until the drug has been disseminated out to a lot of people, the adverse effects have been collected back in a central repository. There's a saying in the pharmaceutical industry that it goes like this: today's side effects lead to tomorrow's therapies. Think about that.
Can't argue with that.
There's one very famous one. It's the drug Propecia. It was marketed for prostate cancer in males, but during the clinical trials, these guys all started growing hair. Now it's marketed for male pattern baldness. Today's side effects lead to tomorrow's therapies. That's a rather benign example, but because take for instance a steroid. You take it for one thing, but it does 50 other things in your body. Yeah. And your body has to deal with those 50 other things in addition to fixing the one thing that needs to be fixed. And most of those effects deal in inflammation or oxidative stress. It's just everything comes down to inflammation and oxidative stress. Cancer, diabetes, heart disease. The next one is cognitive decline. And that's, you got your Alzheimer's and you got your dementia. Both of them have a mechanism in oxidative stress and inflammation. And it's just with Alzheimer's also having some mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yeah.
And that means you're messing up your energy production. Not only do you not remember anything, but you're not going to have any energy to do anything about it. But and then with dementia, there's a very specific neuroinflammation, which means in your brain and nerves and spinal cord and neural network, you have specific nerve inflammation. And that's what drives a lot of that development of dementia, or speeding up the development of dementia, or making it much worse. And it's just that over the last 5 decades, the environment which the human has been asked to live in has gotten more toxic. And
oh, absolutely.
The environment is a constant insult and a constant, you're constantly being hit by something that's going to create oxidative stress or inflammation and soak up those cellular defenses that are battling like crazy to keep us happy, healthy, and alive. So, yeah.
And the neuro stuff is one big thing. Years ago, they would be like, oh, it's genetic, or they'll say, hey, it's genetic. But now we kind of know, and I don't know if it's officially been termed type 3 diabetes, but they were playing around with it. Like type 3 diabetes or diabetes of the brain, basically saying you're destroying your metabolic function of your mitochondria, of your neurons. And now this is impacting how your brain is going to function. It's not just this, oh, hey, I'm getting it because I got it, like, or it's just like an age thing. It's no, this is created through, like you said, toxins. And that's going to be,
and one of those toxins could very well be sugar itself.
Yeah. And people think toxins, they're like, oh, I'm thinking what's toxic in my basement? Is it paint? It's like, no, there's much more. Like, it's going to be what you eat, even the plastics people drink out of. Like, people don't realize toxins are seeping everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And it's very, very hard, because one of the worst ones is plastic. Probably that invention is probably the one of the worst toxins
microplastics and everything.
Yes.
Everywhere scientists look, they're finding microplastics. Think about that.
It's like unavoidable.
It is. It's all in our bodies. It's all in our food. It's all in our consumer products. It's all in our environments. It's in waterways. It used to be that pharmaceuticals were showing up in the waterways. Now it's microplastics. And the buzzwords are PFOS and PFAS, PFAS and PFAS. And basically, these are little bits of the plastic that are loaded with chlorine. And the chlorine is an excellent leaving group. When those small molecules get somewhere in your body and it finds something that it likes, the chlorine leaves and you get a covalent bond between that molecule that shouldn't be there and something that your body needs to function. It could be a DNA molecule, an RNA molecule, a protein, an enzyme, a cell membrane, any of those things. And cells in particular have redundant enzymes. Well, we'll call them DNA repair enzymes just as a collective, but they repair everything, not just DNA. And over time, those enzymes get a little bit less efficient because millions of times a day, there's assaults on your critical cellular macromolecules. And then when you get those adducts, those chemical add-ons, the adducts, the enzymes will come along, snip those off. Or if you get a mismatch in your DNA base pairs, it'll throw out the base pair that's wrong and add back in the one that's. The problems start to happen when those enzymes lose a little bit of efficiency and they don't get through all of the repairs that need to happen before that cell readies itself, replicates its genetic material, pulls apart and makes 2 cells, now with that mutation in the new cell. And if that mutation hits something critical, that's where you could turn on or off an oncogene, or you could affect the expression of a protein, which is critical to some downstream cellular process. And all that happened was There was a toxin that hit something that it shouldn't have hit, and our bodies didn't get to cleaning up the mess. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's what billions of times a day.
Yeah, because toxins are unavoidable. It's just, we're going to sit here and talk about them, but people are going to understand like they're unavoidable. But how do we get our system to have that repair, to be able to run the antioxidants effects of what our body needs to do? Because people hear that as a buzzword. They're like, oh, antioxidants. What do people think? Oh, blueberries. Yeah. But and I'm not, I don't think it's bad, but they don't really understand the concept of the oxidative stress that's damaging that electron, that's damaging the cells, and you're preventing that oxidation, that damaging of all cells in the body, and you can upregulate other antioxidant pathways to help reduce damage.
You have to set yourself up for success. Yeah. And there's multiple ways of doing that. And general healthy living goes a long way for that process. Stay hydrated, eat well, eat from the outside of the supermarket, your raw foods, your whole foods, your less refined or processed foods. Make sure you get enough rest, because all repair happens at rest. And if you have 10 things that are going to hurt you, if you eliminate a couple of them, you're going to be better off. A mentality of eliminating or minimizing all potential exposure is a good thing to try to do. Can you actually achieve that? I don't think. It's just the divine design of the human body says we should last about 135 years. And the only thing that takes time away from that is our environmental exposure and our lifestyle choices. Think about that. When was the last time you heard of somebody lasting 135 years?
Never.
Exactly. The environment is killing us, or what we do to ourselves is killing us. It's interesting that the human is the only animal on this rock that will do things to intentionally hurt themselves. Think about that.
It is crazy. No, I know.
And it's just, you got heart disease, you got diabetes, you got cancer, you got cognitive decline. Those are big four that's the things that really cause aging in humans. And as those DNA repair enzymes lose their efficiency, what do you see creep in? You see gray hair. You see fine lines and wrinkles. You see a little bit of muscle mass atrophy. You see weight gain that you can't seem to control. You see small imbalances in hormone levels, cortisol accumulation. It's these types of things, and that's because of lifestyle. It's all the hormone, the cortisol is a much more prevalent problem than most people give credit to, because of the everyday stress people put up with and how your body reacts to that. It creates inflammation in your body, and to fight that, your body generates that steroid, and it's still uncontrolled inflammation from oxidative stress that's going on due to no toxin, just how you react between your ears to different things that you're tasked with dealing with every day. That's what you're up against. I mean, you can almost say the human is slated to fail. The best that you can hope for is to slow it down as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the carbon 60 comes into play, being the world's best antioxidant. 170 sometimes the potency of vitamin C, and how it's a chemical reaction, not a biochemical reaction. And if you Google carbon 60, you'll find those hit pieces that say, don't take this, it'll kill you. And that's because of impure carbon 60, side chain toxicity. That's because of processing with solvents and solvent toxicity. If you do your homework, you will realize the carbon 60 market is buyer beware. And that the one I recommend is Live Longer Labs, carbon 60, livelongerlabs.com. And they have an excellent website. I encourage everybody to go to it, go down your rabbit holes, look at their links to their research and why their product is better, and how it's been shown by the medical community to improve different conditions that most people suffer from. The articles are there. It's you don't have to be convinced. You can go and read about it yourself. And it's just a matter of giving the body the tools to fight their daily firefight. And if you do that, if you give the body the tools and the parts and pieces that it needs, the body is divinely designed to heal. And you found that out with your creatine supplement. That's your building blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Your C60 supplement, that's your put out the fire supplement. What you're doing is you're calming your body and then saying, here's what you need to build. And what's it doing for you? You feel fabulous.
Exactly.
What else did when you started that C60? I'm interested.
I actually got better sleep.
Yeah.
That was one thing I did notice. And then I would feel when I'd go into my workouts, I just feel more recovered. Or if you were going through a stressful phase or whatever, life or whatnot, when you take it, your ability to your body's just more resilient.
You deal with stuff better.
Yeah.
Whatever stuff is, and it's different for everybody, you deal with stuff better. I get the better sleep too, and I love it. I feel like I don't need to lay in bed as long because
and you definitely
I wake up.
You notice it when you don't take it. Like I haven't, like now I'm out. I haven't taken it in a while. I'm like, okay, like you kind of can tell when you're off it and you're like, okay, I'm just not recovering. And most people might not understand what I mean by that. I'm not recovering enough, but as you go through protocols and workouts over time, you get used to, here's how I feel after this workout versus this. Here's how I feel if I don't get enough good sleep or nutrition. And it's sort of, you start getting into the world of, okay, maybe my supplementation is not optimal now. I'm feeling the lack of recovery. And that's one thing I know a lot of people will be like, well, you shouldn't go to supplements first. And I agree and disagree, because my precision nutrition trainings will say, hey, eat whole foods first, which I do. But sometimes, and many times, people just need a boost. People need more than what food's going to give them.
Especially fine-tuned athletes.
Yeah. And supplements are just, they're simple for people that are on the go. And if it gives them something in 5 C60 pills, or what do you call them? Paul's tablets. Like you're going to get more than probably what you're going to most likely eat in a day of, let's say, blueberries or vegetables or whatever.
C or whatever. You're right.
Yeah. But it's like, it's simple and it's easy. And
more
if
efficient.
It's benefiting the system, go for it. And I know you always get the people who are going to push back. And my opinion, a lot of that stuff too, is like when you say, you're going to go online and find some negative stuff.
Yep.
Are those people like that are pushing against what your industry's or the industry is trying to do, make people healthier, fight inflammation? Are they trying to be like, no, don't take this? Because we've seen this happen in the past, especially during the COVID times where they're, hey, don't take this stuff, don't take this. And then it comes out years later that, if you took this with this, it was actually an ionophore and it helped the body. But why do you want to say no? And a lot of these products, I know we've talked about other ones about like really helping the system.
Right.
That goes a long way and it keeps you healthy. It also keeps the money out of the hospitals and the insurance pockets and big pharma. There's always
business.
A battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cancer is big business, and a lot of people are forced to go through chemo unnecessarily because cancer should be hot. And if they were to just use the emerging field of thermography, they could tell where real cancer is just by a heat screen. I would say most of the breast cancer early finds, it's more diagnostics needs to go into some of these places before they just follow the money all the way to the doctor's bank.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to many people about that. It is hard to understand. Like
it's scary. When
it is money. Yeah. And for that one, when you're talking about the turbo cancers, if people were asking, okay, they hear that and they have the vaccine, what would the protocol be? Would it be, hey, get on C60, start taking that? What would that be if someone's like, hey, I'm a little worried about that.
Something they think they're still producing spike protein.
Yeah, because people will hear that.
People that pick it up from somebody else that's had every booster under the sun, and all they did was go to a party with them. You need a two-prong approach. You need an oxidative therapy, and you need an antioxidative therapy. And the antioxidative therapy obviously is carbon 60. and you do them in opposite times. The oxidative therapy could be any number of things. It could be hyperbaric oxygen. It could be hydrogen peroxide in a nebulizer. It could be ozone, breathing it or doing it IV. It could be chlorine dioxide. That's the one I like the best because it's most surgical. If you want to know more about that, I tell people to send me an email because people don't. That's one of those words that still gets censored. I don't like to talk about it on.
Nope, that's fair. Yeah, I know we briefly talked off air about that, and if people do have questions, send him an email, and that'll be handled. But know that it's the
oxidative and the antioxidant, because the oxidative therapy takes out that spike protein very, very efficiently. Those two famous doctors that are doing the TV shows, Dr. McCullough and Dr. somebody else, I don't remember, that have that natty kinase in the bottle. That's a good oxidative therapy too, and that is known to take out the spike protein. They talk about that, and then the counter to that though is really controlling the inflammation and the oxidative stress, because the oxidative therapy is unleashing the potential of the body to do oxidative harm, and you got to keep it on the rails. If you remember back in the pandemic, part of the pathology of that vaccine was known, they called it cytokine storm.
Yeah.
And that cytokine storm is where your cells are trying like crazy to kill this protein that's there, and they keep calling more and more and more cavalry from the immune system, which is your cytokines, your cellular communicators, your interferon alphas, your all those different things that they come in, and all they do is put inflammation on a turbocharger, because the body uses the reactive oxygen species in the process of inflammation to kill what it doesn't want around. And that's bacteria, that's viruses, that's mold, mildew, fungus, proteins, any of it. Oxidation is the preferred method of execution of the human body. But if it gets out of control, then you got issues.
That's very important, because inflammation is good to certain degrees in the body. Like I don't want people to listen and be like, oh, we got to eliminate all inflammation. Like, you want it because that's what's helping you live. It's an adaptive effect. It's when it gets overloaded. That's the problem nowadays. There's too much. It's chronic inflammation
is your body's way of repairing damaged tissues.
Yeah.
That's where you get all of that good stuff, which the cellular mediators, and you're patching a hole in the road. And you need the things to go in that pothole. And that things comes from your diet or your supplements. Mm-hmm. If they don't have those building blocks, they can prep that hole, but then it stays a hole because they don't have what it takes to fix it. Does that actually make you healthier? No.
Nope.
It doesn't. That's why you need the pieces and parts along with controlling the mechanisms. It's all important. The body's very good at helping itself. And when you eliminate all of the chatter and the noise and the side fights and the daily things that you just have to tolerate, your body does good things for itself very, very efficiently. And inflammation's the top of that list.
Mm-hmm. And you had one more. What'd you get to number 5 on that list? Arthritis.
And that's, everybody's like, oh yeah, it was tough on my joints when I was young and now I got arthritis. Is that truly the cause of arthritis? No, it's not. It's chronic, uncontrolled inflammation and long-term attack on your body's own tissues, which eventually get over that tipping point, and it starts into a destructive process. And once you get into that destructive process, that's when arthritis pops up and gets worse.
Yep. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, I have arthritis or whatever. And I'm like, all itis is inflammation. Like, it's literally telling you it's joint inflammation in an area. People freak out. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to have this forever. It's like, well, no, if you do all your protocols, and then if you start exercising and you move that inflammation around and you take pressure and compression off of certain joints, you can alleviate that arthritis.
Even
but it's
always that guy will say, I can run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's just not simple. people just think it's a lot of times it's overused too. I mean, we do very certain things, same pattern plus lifestyle, but that doesn't always mean you're going to get arthritis.
We don't do anything a little bit at a time. We do it all on one day. And then the next day you say, why did I do that? And how many times over the course of your life can you say, oh my gosh, I rode my bike too far. Oh my gosh, I jumped into working out again and hurt myself because I tried to do too much too fast. Got my son, who is an elite athlete. He is going into his senior year at college to play his senior season in ice hockey. And he says, Dad, you don't have to do a lot. Just do something. Just get down there and move some weights. Do one rep of half a dozen exercises. Yeah. And it's just, you do that every day and your body's going to transform to the point where you will want to do more to be healthier. And again, the flip side of that is if you sit around doing nothing, what do you think you're going to want to do more of?
Brain works that way. Nothing.
Exactly. And it's just, you got to take step one over and over and over until you convince your body that it's well enough to take step two. And then you can progress from there. Because if you go back in just about everybody's histories at some point in your life, we all liked the shape we were in. We liked the activities we did. We liked the sports we played. And then life happens. And then once in a while, I mean, one day you wake up and you look in the mirror and you see a 57-year-old fat guy staring back at you and you say, how did I get here? There's nothing on this earth that's going to take you back to your fighting weight in your 20s in a month. It's just not going to happen. There's lots of things that advertise that it does and charge you a bunch of money for it, but
yep.
You got to regulate what goes in the hole in your face, and you got to move that bag of protoplasm that you've collected over the years more than you are now. And then it's a long, slow process to get back down to that fighting weight.
And that's where people don't want to hear that long, slow process. Like you said, people want this fast, quick answer.
But if you control your inflammation, that long, slow process does not have to hurt.
Correct. Because you have one side where people, let's say they go to the doctor, they have joint pain. Oh, it's arthritis. What do I do? And the doctor's like, well, take some anti-inflammatory and see how it feels. But they're not really guiding it. And then, okay, you get more injured, go to PT, but you might have to live with it. Like, to me, that's a terrible answer. You should never tell someone like, oh, this is what it's going to be. Because then, but I also like it because people start questioning and they're going, well, I don't want it to be this. But it's like misguidance. And then the other side of things, you have, okay, I want to get somewhere quick. Let's do something really fast. And which we can talk like HRT, TRT, and now with the rise of GLP-1s and these other things, like there's some fast solutions for people to do it, but it doesn't change inflammation. And that's why the one thing I would be careful about when talking to people is you can do all this fast stuff, but it doesn't change what your body's going to do.
And the rebound inside effects are the trickle down effects, the ripple effects, whatever you want to call them. Everything you put in your body gives it a chance to do what it's designed to do, and then a chance to do all of the side effects. And before you use those GLP-1 drugs, read those product inserts, read those package inserts. If you have questions on it, send me an email. You can find my email at superiortoxicology.com. I mean, it's like the statin drugs for cholesterol. There's a good chance you're going to wreck your liver. The antidepressants, the science, I mean, the same effect. It changes your brain chemistry. And you can get the same effect as an antidepressant drug that in the beginning will increase ideations of suicide, but you can get the same effect by buying yourself a puppy. You never hear that from your doctor.
Nope.
And then once you get that puppy, then you can walk that dog around the block. And because it's a proven fact that if your dog is overweight, you don't get enough exercise.
Mm-hmm. Reflection. I mean, but stuff like that, you're giving yourself the neurotransmitters with some of that stuff, like buy a dog, get a pet, do certain things, like, and then that's probably a very good one because it's cyclical. Like the pet, every day it's going to give you that whatever, that dose, whatever it's cuddling, it's friendly, like it triggers that.
The feel good neurotransmitter.
The feel good. And that starts to reshape a brain.
Yeah, and it does.
most people, we all start to think we need some sort of drug to change it. And that's, for me, one of the worst things to think, like, oh, what are they going to put me on? And even my clients, when we talk, I'm like, okay, talk to your doctor, but don't commit to anything until you do your research, but see what they're going to say. But here's probably what they're going to do and try to say. It's like, how do we get people, like you said, to do that their own way without going down like pharmacology route?
I've been in toxicology for 37 years. I've been in pharmaceutics for 27 years. And I'm one of the first ones to say drugs are not the answer. Drugs are not the answer. If your doctor wants to put you on a bunch of drugs because you're pre-diabetic, or doctor wants to put you on a statin because your cholesterol levels are getting close, both of those situations, you should say, wait a minute, doc, give me 30 days, give me 60 days, give me 90 days. Let's see what I can do with a diet and a lifestyle change, because diet and lifestyle changes are just as effective as those pharmacologic treatments, and you don't have the side effects, the detrimental side effects of the drugs. You do have the side effects of changing your diet and exercise. And Eric, you could probably talk about that for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the major thing, but people don't want to hear that. That's the last thing people want to hear, because it threatens what they want to do. Hence where one of the big conversations I have with a lot of my clients, a lot of people I work with, is, okay, how do we start from a nutrition standpoint? And that starts with supplementation. Like, it starts with the mind, and you get them to understand what's going on, and then they start to buy it. Like, I just talked to someone today, exercising every day of the week.
Yeah.
We started off with week 1, week 2, and now I asked them today, I was like, okay, is it starting to change your approach? And they go, well, I'm eating less. And I said, oh, very interesting. But he said, but I'm eating less when there's junk food around, because then I know I got a workout in that day. Mm-hmm. I don't want to feel like crap, and I'm eating less, waiting for the better food. And then you start to bring, okay, well, now we're dialing the system. Now we can talk about further supplementation, how to really help the system go. And then people get on it. They're like, hey, they're bought in.
Yep. And the more they do stuff, more they move, the more they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And it feeds on itself, and it's the positive reinforcement, and that changes your brain chemistry too. And then when you don't get the exercise because you've got a full slate of phone calls and you're chained to your desk all day, and those clients are just hammering you for projects that you gotta sit and get through it and work through it, and you start to miss those workouts. That's when you know you've turned a corner, Eric.
Yeah. And for me, like, stuff like that, that's where and I might be different than other people, that's where I look forward to my supplementation routine, or because then it's like, well, if I already got my workout on, but it's been stressful time. Well, I have this to help combat this next thing. I have this kind of protocol. And then you can start to be like, well, I know I'm going to feel good if I do this. Awesome. And it's like, hey, let's start to dial this in. And then you're like, how do I help more people?
It's really a self-fulfilling cycle of positive reinforcement, and you are proactive. You're creating change for the better for your health. And it's got to get strong enough, because this is the worst time of year for anybody to start a health program. Mm-hmm. Because first you got Halloween, then you got Thanksgiving, then you got the holidays, then you got that Valentine's Day, and then you got St. Patrick's Day, and it's just from October to March, it's nothing but junk food.
Yeah, and then research has shown that's when most people on average gain from, let's say, Halloween to New Year's, average of 2 pounds every year. And it's then the cycle that they try to lose it and they gain. It's like dialing it in, dialing it in every single day. And that's number one. It comes back to fighting chronic inflammation. Mm-hmm. You fight that stuff and do the things, you're on the path.
Yep. That's true.
And there's one thing we talked off the show, but last time you'd mentioned about the wildfires. In your research. Sure. Let's dive into that, because I want to get into that and hear what you got with that. And then the research you said just came out about a month ago. This is fresh off, but break us down what you saw, what you kind of found, and how this is impacting.
Sure. The wildfires, the paper that I wrote deals mostly with a fire that's known as the Marshall Fire, which happened on December 30th, 2021, in just outside of Boulder, Colorado, in a town called Superior in Louisville, Colorado. Burned 1,000 houses down. And it was one of those days where there was 100-mile-an-hour wind right on the Front Range in Colorado, blew over some power lines, sparked some fires, and there was another potential cause where there was a commune that they had some teenage boys. Their task for the commune was burning trash, and nobody thought it was a good idea to stop these kids from burning trash on a day when there's 100-mile-an-hour winds. But the paper that I wrote along with my co-author, it says, the title of it is Industrial Hygiene Method for Assessing Toxic Contamination in Smoke and Fire Damaged Homes. Now, it goes through water dynamics and airflow dynamics and how the particles which carry these toxic substances inundate entire houses. When these wildfires rip through these communities, when people first go back in and they see that their house is standing where most of their neighbors are burned to the ground, at first they think they're the lucky ones. And as it turns out, they are not the lucky ones, because their house is filled with typical byproducts of fire: ash, soot, and char. And those particles are laden with heavy metals and polyaromatic hydrocarbons and other persistent organic pollutants like dioxins and furans. Dioxins and furans are created by incomplete combustion of man-made materials, vinyls, PVC, plastic, rubber, plumbing pipes, and all that kind of stuff. The stuff you find in structures. And what's going on, especially out in Southern California, is the California Department of Health is telling people to go in and wipe your walls down and move back in. There's nothing to test for. There's nothing to worry about. And what I have found through extensive testing of these Marshall Fire houses in Colorado and mounting cases out in Southern California is that those houses that were littered with the ash, soot, and char are also littered with dioxins and furans. You got to understand, dioxins, if not the most toxic thing on the planet, is one of the most toxic things on the planet. It's carcinogenic, and the next most potent carcinogen is 10,000 times less carcinogenic than dioxin.
Jeez.
So that's what we're talking about. The World Health Organization has put a limit on dioxin of 2.3 picograms per kilogram per day. That's very little, very, very little. And you can find some of these dioxins in some foods and beverages and industrial areas. And it used to be very prevalent in electrical insulator transformers and such. There was an entire community in somewhere in New England. It's called Love Canal. If you Google Love Canal, you'll see that there was a huge spill, turned it all into a Superfund site. They bought the whole town and relocated everybody. But the thing about it is it's per kilogram body weight. Who's the most susceptible to effects from these toxins? The kids, the lighter ones. And since it's a carcinogen and it's a long-term toxin, the kids have a longer runway than somebody, say, my age, because I'll probably die before there's any fire dioxin-related cancer that comes about in my lifetime. But they're telling these families with young kids to move back into these homes. And what this paper has created is it's created the question of, are insurance companies doing the thing? And what our premise is, and we propose the correction to it, is that the first time people go back to their houses and they're hiring industrial hygienists to do testing to determine what type of toxins are in the house, they've typically left dioxins and furans off the list. And all we're telling them to do is in that first visit, also add these tests in. If your house is able to be remediated and cleaned up, or if there's much toxins and carcinogens present, that it would be faster, more efficient, safer, and less expensive to push what's left over, take it off to the dump, and rebuild from the dirt. That's the premise that we're going through now.
Now, would those be something, you said ash and dust, where would they be like particles that are, if the house didn't, let's say, all the way burn down, particles that are like on the wall, in the paint, that are kind of just lingering on surfaces, but you won't be able to see?
Everywhere. Yes, absolutely. Wow. You won't see these. And the testing that gets done, they can take all kinds of samples and determine how much of a percentage of the area is covered in ash and soot and char. And then they can also do testing for various chemicals in your volatiles, your semi-volatiles, your polyaromatic hydrocarbons, typical things that happen when things are burned. And then you also can do the next level, which is the dioxins. And the dioxins are only formed by incomplete combustions of those man-made products. If a forest is burning and there isn't any structures that burn, it's probably going to be a non-toxic fire. It's like a fire pit. Mm-hmm. And unless, of course, you got a neighbor that goes out there and they burn up tin cans and rubber tires and vinyl sheets of stuff, and then that creates you see the black smoke that comes off of fires like that. Those are different particulates than the particulates that come from burning just trees and grasses and bushes and underbrush. And it's in those particles that the devil is in the details. And some data is showing that in the houses that have the smoke that comes in through the way the house breathes, it gets in the house through the eaves and goes through the airflow and through the intakes, that it gets everywhere. And it's even worse if a house has like a fire in the garage, but then that smoke inundates through the whole house because there's a fire concentrated in the house, and then everything that's created in that fire gets distributed throughout the whole house. And your insurance companies are saying, well, we'll just remediate the garage. Everything else is fine. And that is the furthest thing from the truth that we're finding when we do the data analysis. And changing the way of thinking is going to be a struggle because the testing for dioxins is more expensive than all of the other tests, but it also gives you the data to make the correct decisions to get on the path of, can we fix this or do we need to replace it sooner? Paying for somebody to live somewhere else is less, and paying for fighting about what needs to happen is less. Although the upfront costs may go up with some more lab tests, the overall costs of all claims should reduce significantly. Once the insurance company embraces that side of it and sees a couple case studies like that, they should come around to doing their thing. We'll see. And like I said, I got one paper already published. And if people want to see this, that you can look online. If you search industrial hygiene method for assessing toxic contamination in smoke, fire damaged houses, you'll find it. I made it open source. If you go to Toxicology Mechanisms and Methods, that's the journal where it's at. You'll find it and you can get it. I paid so that everybody on the globe can click that link and they get that whole article. They don't have to pay $35 to download it. That's paper number 1. And I'm writing paper number 2. Now we're already thinking about paper number 3, and there might even be a 4th in the same series, because everybody is saying, this stuff isn't proven. Nobody's writing about this. There's nothing published on it. My co-author and I are writing down our research and our conclusions and our thoughts, and we're going to drive the process by publishing the papers.
That's good. Well, that's what you want, because it's making people aware of what's going to damage your health, just like the inflammation, because it's going to drive that stuff. Like I was always taught when I was younger, like when you have a fire, don't burn stuff with like color dyes in it or Christmas wrapping paper or plastics. Like there's reasons why you don't, because it's one of the worst. And it just goes to show you that, like what people don't see, what they don't know about, they also sometimes don't care about. And it's important to bring that to the table, because we're talking about people's overall healthier, especially young kids, because that's going to affect that that dose, that poison is going to affect them a lot more than a grown adult like you or I. It's like, are we setting ourselves up for the best quality of life possible? And that's very important.
It is. And that paper goes into a lot of the background toxicity on dioxins and why and how it does the damage that it does. And it's a reprotoxin, which means it can affect the genetic material, but even more insidious, which is just a fancy science word for means it sneaks up on you, it can skip generations. So let's say you move back into your fire-based house and you have a small child which is exposed, but then they have a child. No problem there, but when that child has a child, they're the one that's gonna have the problems because of that exposure 2 generations earlier, and that's just wrong.
Yeah, and it like goes back to also what we were talking about, like the microplastic and plastic, and you see these companies and foundations companies and buildings in industry like burning stuff. And for my brain, it goes back to the Industrial Revolution. Like, what did that stuff look like? What were they burning? And just emitting everything. Everything's going into the air. But it's not even...
It was indiscriminate burning where all of the off gas, the ash, soot, and char goes out the stack. There's technology that exists that you can scrub everything going out that stack to catch all of your heavy metals, all of your toxins, all of those materials, all of those particles, that all you're sending out is hot air. It's more expensive, but A, you get rid of the biomass, and B, you're doing the thing for the environment. And I would think in an ideal society, people would do that anyway. But it never happens that way until somebody 100%. With some authority says you have to do it this way.
Because the people don't want to pay for that cost. And that's when I love talking about the environment, and I'll have conversations with people. But when you bring up like, hey, when you start to burn stuff into the environment, and people never think about this, are you thinking about what those toxins are going to do to the people that those particles are landing on? And you see people go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then you start opening up their world of like, hey, the environment will get damaged. Yes. But now you're going to damage the humans in that environment. And then people are like, oh my gosh, this is more than I thought. It's like, yeah, like everything will damage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And people are moving back into these houses because the insurance company says we're not paying for you to live anywhere else. Yeah. And they're getting sick. Mm-hmm. And they're getting sick. And that's just, it's wrong for that to actually happen. And the counter arguments is that, there's a background level and this stuff isn't that high in the house, so it shouldn't do anything. But because there's a background level and because there's some in food and because there's some in industrial zones, then there shouldn't be any in your house, which is supposed to be a safe environment for you. And if that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, then that's a problem. And you can't just say, that little bit in your house isn't going to be an issue because it's small. Well, guess what? You're never just exposed to that. You're exposed to all of it. Mm-hmm. And you're also exposed to all the other toxins, the stuff you breathe, the stuff you drink, the stuff you eat. And every single one of them, or nearly every single one of them, is hitting that bucket of cellular defenses and decreasing your quality of health because of additive exposure. And all of those safe limits that the regulatory agencies come up with, the myth of those things is that's the safe limit if that's all you're exposed to. You're never exposed to just one thing. Never.
No, it's not. And it is tough because we kind of know that it's driven by monetary gains or monetary loss. Like it is hard when we get into any conversation like this, because you follow the money and like, hey, this is what companies are going to do. They don't have to lose money. And it's frustrating because some people don't care about overall health.
Yeah.
Or they'll say they do, but they really don't. It's like, okay, well, you're just destroying you're destroying ourselves.
Yeah. And that makes them a charlatan.
Yep. Well, I know we're a little over an hour. Anything else? I mean, that was another great
show. If people have questions or comments or want to tell me I'm crazy, it's all good. You can find me at superiortoxicology.com. You get on that website, there's a contact form. You can click on that to leave me an email. You can root around, find my phone number, send me a text, give me a call. I answer the phone whenever I can, or if you leave me a voicemail, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And it's a great message. You can minimize how fast you age. You can minimize the damage done daily by inflammation if you have the tools for the job. And it's that simple, Eric. It's that simple. And if you want to know more about C60, give me a call. Let's talk about it. If you want to know how it works in your specific situation, if you're an elite athlete, if you're a middle-aged fat guy, if you're an up-and-coming athlete, any of those situations, or if you have other debilitating conditions that you want to know if it'll help with, get in touch with me. I'm happy to help.
Yep. Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie here from Thinkfitness Life. Our entire careers have been dedicated to fitness, particularly how the mind helps the body. We've been around gyms and nutrition strategies for 25 plus years collectively, and nothing harms or helps better than your own mind, untrained or trained. Pushing beyond your limits, overcoming whatever's thrown your way, and making the decision to show up day in and day out as a lifestyle takes more soul than sand. And what I mean by that is when you can get your mindset and heart leading you consistently in the direction of your goals and dreams, well, it's just a matter of time before you have the performance, physique, or quality of life you're yearning for. So your thoughts will stem from your beliefs, which will then lead you to action, which develop into your behavior and ultimately lead you to results. It's really that simple. Our process takes time and it takes open communication. It's amazing what pops up along the fitness journey to betterment, and we can be there every step of the way. To learn more or apply for coaching, visit www.thinkfitnesslife.com. Start recreating your life today.